Hey, multimedia, it's Mr. Campbell from San Benito High School. Here to show you some more cool Photoshop stuff to do. And there's a few different things happening here. This is a bit more complex, which is why it's sort of at the end of the line in this particular study unit. So what we're going to do with this is, let's see, there's several things happening. One is this layer of dots, and that's sort of separate and fills that area in. There's this text thing with these different effects occurring and that whole layer. And then there's also this crazy background. So there's a few layers to the background that we're working with, and you know we have to work these things together to make them work right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go make a new setup. So File, New, and like we've been using, we're going to use a print setup. We're going to use letter, and we're going to set this to landscape. So landscape is going to be 11 by 8.5. So let's go and work this. And you can use this for lots of different things, whether it's print or film or video or screen. This is going to be using print resolution. So if you try to send this to a screen, it's going to turn out pretty huge. Anyways, let's start out by picking a couple colors. And these colors I'm choosing are going to be my background colors. So I'm going with pink and purple. These are interesting colors that work together nicely. And we're going to use this gradient tool. Now the gradient tool, if you have your toolbox set up to wide, you're not going to see it because you're going to see the paint bucket. So find the paint bucket. It's right next to, what is that, the eraser? So click and hold to get the gradient tool. You can also just put capital G to cycle through those. So I'm using capital G or just G, yeah, capital G to move through those until I find the gradient tool. And I'm going to choose the linear gradient right here. Those are the two colors right there that I'm choosing here. So I can see how it fits together. And drag this straight down. And I'm holding down Shift. And I want to put the center of this in the middle. So you don't have to draw the whole thing. If you draw it like this, it spreads that gradient over space. And if you draw it close together, it makes it a lot tighter. Let's go ahead and make this about like this. And that looks good. All right. Just as a backup, because I freak out sometimes, what if it's gone? Let's just make a backup copy so it's there. All right. Good times. Let's now go to the Filter menu. And in the Distort menu, there's a command called Wave. And we want to adjust these settings until you get something like stripes. So the number of generators, not really sure what that does even, but if you do smaller numbers, it breaks apart like this. So you want to get full stripes. And the wavelength allows you to control how wide are the pieces. And you can separate the wavelength into two separate slices here. This controls how many stripes you're going to get. So perfect stripes like this, the two are lined, and if you stretch the bottom one out, you get sort of more trapezoidal shapes. Let's try the amplitude now. So the amplitude just kind of puts more waviness through it. So try that out. And scale. Scaling, what does scaling do? Hard to say. So I'm supposed to know these things. You can also do it like this, which not quite what we're after at this point. Let's go and repeat edge pixels and make sure the type is set to trine. Now, sign. So if you've got these, they'll all kind of work, but sign is really what we're after right now because it's going to give us broader stripes. Now, see it's breaking up over here, so we kind of want to mess around with these settings until that gets sort of straightened out. So there we go. I like that a lot. So I say, okay. So all we're doing right now is we're designing our background. So that was a couple minutes to get that part done. And now we're going to go to the Filter menu again, choose Distort. This time we're going to choose Polar Coordinates. And Polar Coordinates is so much fun to mess with. So many things you can do with this. But we're going to do this for starters. And it does that. That's so cool. Wow, I like that. So I'm going to add another layer to this. And I'm going to set this next layer to, well, we'll get to that in a second, I guess. Let's just choose the foreground color and set this to white. And if we do another gradient on this, we're going to want to set the edge to transparent. So if I click on this, when you do a gradient editor, it'll use your two ends. And if we want to use the bottom sliders are the colors. So if I open this up, I get color. And if I open the top up, I get transparency. So the transparency is right here, opacity. So if I add an opacity stop there, but then set this one to 0, It's going to fade at the edge. And you can mess around with this all day long. Well, don't do it all day long, but for a while you could. So I'm going to go to the middle and sort of spread that out to there. Oops. That's a linear gradient. I want to use a radial gradient. So radial is here, right up here next to the gradient panel, if you have the gradient tool selected. If you don't, select the gradient tool. I get this, and that looks okay-ish, I think, maybe. I'm not entirely sure that's actually what I wanted, but let's try it. So if I then change the blend mode, here's a place where you want to just try stuff. Experiment with the blend modes until you like what you see. And it sort of gives that glow. Ooh, I like that a lot. That's color dodge. So I'm going to stick with that one, and it sort of creates that sort of light at the end of the tunnel. Or it's a train, we don't know. But here's this, and that's it for that part of the thing. Now, before you move too much further, you probably should save as Photoshop document. We're going to do this with, we're going to name this, what should we call it? Let's call it Color Burst Text. And we're going to name it with our ID number. So my ID number is 0000, same 6 digits, but I'm like the first one because I'm way before any people. So use your ID numbers to that 0. And I got this. All right. Now, there's a few things I can mess with for now, but what I'm going to do is just do a simple text piece. So let's drop the text in here. I can click and drag to make some text. And I'm going to put a word in here. So put a word that you like, that's school appropriate, and that's respectful, kind, and awesome. So let's just put be kind, and I'm going to put an excitement mark, also known as an exclamation point. And let's now change. I push Control A to select all. And up in the top, I should see these choices for my size of my text. Let me just drag this down until I get that. And that looks pretty good. Now, I want to kind of work with that piece. Now, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to warp the text. So there's some built-in warps on this. If I choose Type and go down here and find Warp Text, okay, this is a menu we've not been in before, the Type menu. And there's some presets in here. So if we choose, for example, Flag, it does this. I'm not really too excited about that. Arc is fun to work with. Arc upper. There's ways to bulge this. That looks kind of cool. And you can actually change the settings. So work with these until you like what you see, until you like the shape. Still not too excited about what I'm seeing. Let me try and inflate and see what that does. Okay, that's kind of cool. Anyways, you can pick whichever one you like. Yes, you can. So let's try arc upper. Yeah, maybe. I guess I kind of like that. So you can put a bend in it. You can do distortion on the verticals and the horizontals. Oh, I like that. And that's editable. I can go back and change that as I see fit. So to get back into that piece of, like with other effects, I might find them over here, but I want to change that. I'm going to go to Window and Appearance, which I don't see. I should see Appearance somewhere. I might be in the wrong. That's Appearance is a different setup. Appearance is in Illustrator, so I'm not going to find it here. It's in this program. It's going to be Warp Text. So if I open this up again, I can continue to mess with this to get exactly what I want. Good times. Look at that. Good times. Yes. I'm having such a blast. So I take this, and I kind of want to make sure I don't lose that starburst in the middle. I can put this somewhere anywhere I want. So now we have to apply a gradient and an edge to it. So there's a few things we're going to use. There's a couple of ways to get to what we're going to do. We're going to click here and choose blending options. That's a thing. Or you can click on the FX button at the bottom layer panel down here. So let's choose blending options. And it opens up this window. We've seen this before, maybe. And this has a bunch of things that affect individual layers, especially with type, but it's also with shapes and drawings and other things. So let's first off choose stroke. And this is a pretty simple thing. There's the slider here for the size of the stroke. You don't want to go too crazy big, but maybe you kind of do. I don't know. So you can actually get as cartoony and interesting and wild as you want. Pick a color you like. I earlier picked yellow on this because yellow is kind of opposite purple on the color wheel. So I feel like I should be a little bit more merging into orangish-ish. So I'm just going to open up the slider and get something. There we go. Closer, closer, closer. That works pretty good. All right, so I can set this to outside, inside, which is hopelessly bad, center, which is okay-ish, but I like outside. So I really want to use the center of this area on these texts, on these letters, to fill them up with a gradient. Okay, so the gradient is what we started off with at the beginning, And so for this, we're going to go to Gradient Overlay and pick a gradient you like or make one from scratch. Choose New and design your own gradient. So if I open this up, the top, of course, is transparency and the bottom is colors. So for example, if I take this and choose more of a yellow, I got that. I can put as many colors as I want to in here. Be tasteful with your colors. And let's go with red. So I'm trying to find things that are going to contrast against the background. And this is so much fun. I'm going to choose some more colors. That's a little crazy. Stare at this too long, you could barf. I'm not sure. Who knows? So each of these has some sliders for the stops between to blend those colors together. So I click OK. And I'm like, yeah, kind of, I guess. There's a reverse thing. Unless you flip the gradient, you can align with the layer. You can set the gradient or linear. There's a few ways to work this out. Reflected, gradient, diamond, and all of these has settings. If I do reflected and I adjust the angle, what I'm trying to go for, I think, is to want to get these colors something horizontalish. I would kind of like to use a little radial gradient, which is a round shape gradient, but I'm trying to make sure that I'm giving myself lots of room to work with. I want it to curve with the shape. So I'm going to go back to reflected, I think is what I had earlier. And I can adjust these. I can align the layer until I like what I see. All right, this could definitely be better, and I'm going to expect you to come through with the what's better. Now the font choice I chose works okay, but you got to watch out for some letters. If you use the exclamation point, you may find that some of that is going to merge too much. Now, for emphasis, got some color issues here. The text is not as emphasized as I'd like it to be, so it's probably a good idea to go back into my layer styles and pick the gradient better. It just doesn't not showing up very well. So as we look at color, we want our colors here to be more bold and more intense than what we see in the background. So again, we could use a lot more yellows, and I can open this up, and to get rid of a color slider, you just click it and drag it away. Gone. And so now we have more of this. Probably at this point I want to make my stroke around the outside bolder than my fill, because the gradient fill is working out pretty good here, I think. I could be wrong. You may have a different opinion. And let me just change the color to more. Ooh, that's interesting. I'm kind of liking that. That was an accident, actually. As Bob Ross says, happy little accidents. I meant to click yellow. But, man, I'm going back to blue for sure. So that tells us to try lots of things before you find it. It kind of looks like a cereal logo a little bit. So let's say OK. Now, I totally almost forgot something really cool I was going to do with this. This will take just another couple extra minutes. We're going to take this extra layer, click on the right side. Again, if you click on the left side, you wind up getting other options. It's kind of confusing, but right click here, and we're going to duplicate layer. You can also drag this onto the new layer button, and you can also go to layer and duplicate layer. Lots of ways to do things. So I've got this Be Kind copy, and what I'm going to do with this layer is I'm going to take out those layer effects, those layer styles. Let's see, if I click on the right, I should be able to find something about layer styles here somewhere. Usually, maybe not this time. Let's see, right click here. Trying to find layer styles. Blend options, we can just take these out. So what I'm going to do is delete my layer styles. Click OK, and it should delete this. Oh, you have to right click down here on the styles themselves. So I can clear layer style. There, now it's clear. So what I wanted to do is get rid of the outline on that. Let's see if that worked or not. Yep, it did. So I want to just get the space here. So that blue is actually the outline from the bottom layer. So what I'm going to do with this space is I'm going to apply a gradient to it, I think. Let me just set the colors to black and white here. And if I use the magic wand tool, and let's see, before we get too busy with this, I guess we'll just use this and use a blending option and choose here. Let's go ahead and choose another gradient overlay. So not the same one, we want to use a different one, because the color doesn't even matter at this point, because we're going to just use this to build some halftone like you see in comic books and stuff in the old days. So let me click on that gradient overlay. Let me pick two seemingly random colors. Okay. I might want to tighten up this gradient a little bit more. I don't know. Let's try that. All right. So the whole purpose of that was to right-click and rasterize the type. And by rasterizing it, we now have an uneditable. We can't change the words anymore. But we can also take the blend options, and we want to rasterize that. So to do that, we have to right-click on somewhere. I don't know. I'm clicking around trying to find where it is, and I want to rasterize the layer style. So by rasterizing the layer style, now it collapsed it, and so all the stuff that was down here. This one's actually for the bottom layer. I'm going to take this stuff. I'm going to use a filter. The filter I'm going to use is Pixelate, and we're going to choose color halftone. So try a radius of about 20. Click OK, and you get this, which is kind of nifty. And then to make that visible through, I'm actually not that excited about that. Undo. I kind of want to get rid of that sharp band in the middle. So I'm going to back up a few steps, and I want to change that overlay of that gradient to not have that black band in it, because what we're doing is the gray areas are going to change. So I'm going to take a new slider there by clicking. There we go. And we get rid of the ones I don't want. Let's see. Let's get this one. I see what I'm doing wrong. Let's double click on this and make it gray. All right, so the color halftone process makes solid areas out of black space, but the gray space is going to treat differently. So again, I'm going to rasterize layer style, and we're good to go. So I'm going to take this piece now and use filter, pixelate, color halftone, and this will change white pixels into white, and it'll take the gray ones and make them sort of a dot. Okay, and that looks good, except it's all colorful, which I didn't really want. But notice it's just inside the shapes. So I removed the layer style that had the stroke on it in order to make sure that it didn't apply this dot matrix pattern, this halftone, to the outline, just the inside letter. So continuing, we're going to choose image, adjustments. I think we want to go black and white on these. Nope, that's not it. Image, adjustments. Boy, I knew the answer about 5 minutes ago. I think it's desaturate or match color. It's somewhere in here. Threshold. Threshold changes everything to either black or white. So I want pure dots on this. So somewhere in the middle, if you're going to bizarre, it looks like paisley sort of. And I want dots. So too much this way, you get weird shapes. And I want really a dot shape. So that's what I'll be looking for from you, is nice dots. Click OK. And then the last step will be to take this blend mode, this layer blend mode, and changing it to multiply. Multiply makes the white areas transparent and the black areas opaque. So now we have this nice dot pattern to make it cool with. So don't forget to save as. Export as a PNG image. So you're going to save as Photoshop here. And I already saved this earlier. And I'm going to export as a PNG, quick export as PNG. Put them both in your Google Docs folder, and then submit them to the assignment in Classroom and also in Bulb. Hope you had a good time with that. I had a blast. We'll see you in class. Peace out.